Hello there, and welcome to the Stay Off My Lawn podcast, where we'll have a little fun, lots of laughs, and discussions on the common sense that needs to be applied to a lot of today's world news issues. And now, the disclaimer. Stay Off My Lawn is not intended as legal, medical, or financial advice. Void where prohibited. No purchase necessary to win. Open to legal U.S. residents 18 or older in the contiguous 48 states. Any resemblance to anyone living or deceased is purely coincidental. Actual price may vary. Only use as directed. Not a member of FDIC. And now, here are your hosts, Mike and Richard. I'm sorry, that's on a radio.
Oh my gosh. Well, hey, welcome to this week's edition of Stay Off My Lawn. It is October 22nd. And according to the calendar,
we'll say it is.
Yeah, I believe it is 10/22, 2024, and this is episode 88. Same number as
the number of keys on the keyboard of a piano.
Yes, there you go. See, we have references.
I called it a keyboard, and that was not satisfactory in the promo. Shame on me.
But that kind of information is the kind of free stuff that we hand out every week here on the.
That's right. Totally, completely worthless information that nobody really cares about. That's us. That's what we provide.
But it doesn't cost you a thing is really the takeaway. Oh, gosh. And we want a special welcome to those on the Oracle Talk Radio Network. If you're listening to us there, chances are it's 5 p.m. on a Thursday at oracletalkradionetwork.com. And I did not tell you about this, but I got an email saying that they have an app now for the Oracle Talk Radio Network. It was available on iOS first, and I think the Google Play Store was a couple days later. But it should be ready to go now. I haven't heard anything that it's been delayed, so it should be out there. I've not checked. If you've tried it and you can't find it, then shoot me an email and I'll look at that. But we should have an app. Oh, by the way, I was down in Augusta this weekend.
Well, you got a lot of by the way.
Oh, by the way,
I'm just going
And by the way, I was down in Augusta over the weekend, and I got in the truck. I had to be at midnight, and I turned on the Oracle Talk Radio Network just to hear another show, and ended up being two voices that I recognized very well. And it was us from, it was actually episode 86 from where we interviewed Robin, my friend Robin from the week before. So I was like, they're still putting us in different rotations over the weekend well, we're filler, I guess is maybe the way we could be.
Well, we'll take it.
We'll take it. Absolutely.
Go ahead. Make us filler. We don't care. We're putty. We'll go anywhere.
So how was your weekend? I heard you've been out there working on your yard quite a bit.
It was a beautiful day, Sunday afternoon, and it's like, man, 75 degrees. We're 2/3 of the way through October. It's like, this is kind of weird. Anyway, I went, okay, the lawn needs to get mowed. Everything was all ready to go. Put gas in the lawnmower, check the oil, blah, 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 on my riding mower, because I have 15,000 square foot of grass. So yes, I have a riding mower. And I'm going along the edge of a flower bed thing, the plastic edging, and I'm watching that on the left, and I'm going, God, this thing is just not steering right. And I look over on the right side, and it must have been low on air. I have, for anybody who doesn't know what a goat head is, look it up. They're nasty little weeds that put out spikes that are just horrible. Flattens the tires. I usually put run flat in it, and I usually check them before I go drive the lawnmower every single time. I can't say that anymore because I missed it. So anyhow, it popped the tire off the bead. I didn't have enough compressor in my little air pressure in my compressor it's an old one and it's getting tired, and I couldn't get it to
put it back on.
Pop it back on. Yeah. So yeah, went and got it fixed yesterday. Tire store where I bought tires and had some stuff done to my pickup, and they were really kind. They put the run flat stuff in it, which is like a slime type thing. Put it in the tire, and so I'm good to go now for a while. They did it for me for free because I have given them lots of money.
Well, I mean, that's customer service.
They were really nice. Came out, they weren't real busy. Picked it up. I wasn't gone from the house 10 minutes. Literally, I come back and my wife goes, "You're back already?" Yeah, doesn't take that much time. time.
It was quick. It was quick. I told you I was down in Augusta. We went to a party, and of course there was lots of drinking, and then they had karaoke, so there was
Oh,
auditory
no.
pleasure along with visual pleasure. It was a lot of fun. It was somebody's birthday. It was a good time one way or the other. But yeah, watching people kind of get sloshed and trying to sing. Hey, Jackson Brown isn't for everybody. So I mean, it's just the way it goes.
Well, and drinking is not your game.
It's
So,
certainly not my game, but I do
yeah.
I do enjoy watching. So
I wasn't sure what the reason was you went to Augusta. I just thought it was your annual Southern Fall pilgrimage to Augusta to enjoy the lovely scenery along the way.
Oh, and we saw the remnants of Helene. Oh my gosh, it's like there were just trees that people have chopped up and put by the side of the road. I'm guessing the county's going to come by and pick a lot of that stuff up because everything was out by the road. But I was like, man, there was cords and cords and cords of wood out there. Of course, a lot of it was unusable unless you were outside. A lot of it was pine, but it was just awful. I mean, the devastation is just awful. There was a couple of houses we saw where the tree was actually through the house. I mean, the tree fell over and it was so big that it actually cut through the house like a hot knife through butter. It was terrible, terrible.
Yeah, and people think that it's all the flooding is over. Okay. Now the work begins.
Yeah, exactly.
They still they don't have any electricity. They don't have anything. There was a gentleman talking who was in one of those towns that virtually is gone now. And he was talking to a reporter. He said, well, you're from LA. The reason I moved out here was to get away from all the stuff in California. And he goes, I was in shock that somebody came to my door and had water and food and just goes here. He goes, that doesn't happen in California.
No.
He said, in California, you can live in an apartment building and not know who's living next to you. They have no idea who's there. It's as bad as in New York.
Yeah, and just like New York, I've heard people that, if they hold the door open for somebody, they'll give you a dirty look. They're like you're up to something. I'm like, that's just so weird. I mean, here in the South, things are different. I mean, you open the door for other men. I mean, you don't think about who's behind you. You just do it because it's the right thing to do. And it's like, you can always tell when somebody's from somewhere else. They kind of like look at you like funny. So
oh yeah, that happens here all the time. The small town stuff, and folks don't understand. Country people help you and take care of something that it's not theirs. It's not their job to do, but you do it anyway. Just like several years ago when we moved here, my first stint at having a couple of cattle out in the pasture. And somebody somehow or another had opened the gate on the far end of my pasture, and the barn's in the way, and I can't see that it's open. But all of a sudden, I was at work, and they came by the house and knocked on the door and asked Nancy, do you happen to have a... She goes, yeah, well, we got them taken care of. They just got out and walked down a gravel road, and there was if cattle get into fresh alfalfa, they will founder. They will bloat, and it's not good for them. That's why they eat the dry stuff, the wet stuff, the fresh, and they love the fresh, but they will eat it until they can't handle it.
It's just bacteria that kind of like...
Yeah, it ferments, and then that's not good.
Yeah, I got you.
So anyway, they said, yeah, well, we've got them. I've got them in a pen over here. What? A neighbor, couple of them got together and they shushed him over into the guy who was at the time the neighbor that was there was raising quarter horses. He had buffalo in a pen to train the quarter horses with. Boy. That's another fun story. Anyhow, just put him in the pen, and I didn't get home until late. It was dark. I said, can I come over and in the morning and we'll get these, brought over. I get over there. They're already got a trailer backed up, getting the cows. We didn't herd them down the road. He put them in a trailer, brought them to my house, drove out in the pasture, let them out, and I said, can I give you? And he goes, nah, no big deal. Yeah. That's what country folk do for each other.
City
you help each other
understand. Out. They really don't.
Nobody asked. Nobody said you have to. No, he fed and watered them for the night.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it is a different culture. It's certainly, and I've known people that come down from New Jersey and they say it's more of a culture shock than they realized. And it's like, it's still the same country, but it's amazing how the different areas, especially when you go from a high population metropolitan area as opposed to, you live much more countrified than I do, but even where I'm at, it's just very different. So.
Yeah, most of my neighbors, the nearest ones are like half a mile away.
Yeah, see,
That's a neighbor, half a mile,
that.
just down the road a ways.
This week, though, Auntie Kamala did an interview with Bret Baier over at Fox News. Did you happen to see any of that, or was that?
Yes, I did watch some of that. It was rather humorous.
Yeah, it was almost a little combative. I think they both
came little.
I think they both came into this with the mindset they weren't going to let the other one steamroll them.
And in this corner in the red trunks weighing in it. Yeah, a little combative.
I don't know if I want to see either one of them in trunks, but I mean, kind of hurts my brain a little bit. I think Bret was starting to get pretty frustrated because every time he asked a question, she would kind of filibuster and just not answer. Here's a good example. He asked about immigration, and this is how that went.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Brett. Well, that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90-plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done.
If you remember the original question, when did you realize this was a crisis? That question never got answered.
No, it was no. Or as Peanut would say, no.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, we were supposed to see him this month, Jeff Dunham up in Chattanooga, and he canceled and went to, I think it's now in April of next year. So I hate that. I wanted to see Peanut. We got good seats for that too. Anyway.
My favorite's Walter.
Yeah, well, you mean Joe Biden? Yes, Walter. Yes. He's very similar to Joe Biden.
Yes, so they do look a lot alike.
Scott Jennings at CNN. Now, he's been kind of a thorn in their side over there at CNN lately, but he was part of a panel after this whole meeting, and he kind of called her out on some things.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wait a minute. I got the wrong one. There it is.
She has no answer for why Biden and Harris threw out Donald Trump's executive orders and changed everything, and then a flood of people came in. An ounce of humility here would go a long way, and she doesn't have it in her to do it, and she has no real answer other than to blame Congress. And Brett was right. Democrats controlled everything when they took over, and so is she saying it's the Democrats' fault that the immigration system is broken? I don't understand this. I don't understand why she can't just say, hindsight here, we shouldn't have done it. I think the American people would actually accept it, but she won't do it.
He's right. Humility would go a long way. And if you just kind of said, look, I screwed up, man, we all screw up, right?
Yeah. No, that's not in her vocabulary. And I used to think Hillary's voice was annoying. Oh, my Lord. Yeah. And when she's trying to tell you, she sounds like a little kid who's been caught with stuff and she's whining so that she can get her way.
Oh, yeah, you're right. She does kind of jump up a few octaves at that point. Yeah. But it kind of pierces your, and it's like Obama's voice got to me. I really didn't like the way because he had that whole attitude that he was kind of talking to you like you're a dumb little kid. And, and she's got that same attitude, but her voice is even more annoying because it does have that piercing tone to it. Brett did ask her about money to pay for transition surgeries for prisoners. Again, there was really no answers given.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries happened during his
Well, you know what? You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in this presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassignment surgeries?
I will follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think it's real. He spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas, at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again, his policy was no different.
Again, no answers.
Sir, and accusing someone else. And I remember, what did they say? She said the name Trump 140 times or something.
It was a lot. Yeah. But wow. And who cares how much money you spent on the ad? I don't believe it was a $20 million ad. How could it be? But it's like, come on. She just can't. She doesn't want to admit.
Well, and she was trying to lie about it. He kept saying, no, that's not what took place. Well, no.
Yeah, Brett did pretty good. We are up against a break, but when we come back, Brett was actually interviewed by another Fox News person and was talking about what was going on behind the scenes and how it all ended. It's kind of a neat story. So hang in there. We will be right back.
I'm Charmaine Davies, and every week my guilty pleasure is tuning in to the podcast Stay Off My Lawn. It's funny, it's informative, and the guys that present it are just fabulous. So make sure you tune in every week to Stay Off My Lawn and make it your guilty pleasure too.
We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
Hi, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 2, and we're going to wrap up a little bit from what we had before. We had the interview with Brett Baier and Auntie Kamala. It was
Wow, that was it was such a wonderful.
It really was. I think it really turned out well. There's
maybe not for her, but
the way it ended. I'm going to play a clip of the way it actually ended, and it doesn't seem like anything necessarily remarkable, but we've got a little insight after this. This is how it ended.
Madam Vice President,
and
they're giving me a hard rap.
Well,
here.
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very cordial, very nice. But you think about
that had chills all over it. That was as cold as ice.
She was not nice. She was not happy to meet him.
Neither one of them were very happy about it. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, thanks for your time. Whatever.
But the funny word there was a hard rap. And
yes.
Brett was interviewed by another Fox News host later on about what that meant and what was going on, and he had this explanation.
Dana, you've been on the other side. You've been on the rapper as a press secretary interviewing a president, and I'm talking like 4 people waving their hands, like it's got to stop. So Martha, final, I had to dismount there at the end.
dismount. I love that. I don't know if that's a nice thing to say, but anyway.
Yeah, he had all kinds of people, and it was supposed to go a little longer, and they were telling him, "Nope, we're done. This is the end of this because this."
Not working out. And like we said, the last segment, I think that there was just a lot of going back and forth. I think both of them came in going, you know what, I'm not going to let the other one steamroll me or bully me or whatever. And
it was kind of like,
yeah, there was
we're done.
There were cat noises. And yeah, it was terrible. On the show, we have talked quite a bit.
It was pretty good confrontational, wasn't it? I don't know.
It wasn't bad. Zoom kind of missed some of that on my end, but
sorry.
No, you're good. So this clip is being recorded, so it's on your end, so we're good. We do talk quite a bit about people trying to call our form of government a democracy, which it certainly is not. And we
never has been.
We correct people and try to tell them it's a representative constitutional republic, and it's not just semantics. Just so you know, we're not just being nitpicky about what words you use, but there's a reason why we are so adamant about that. And the John Birch Society has just come out with this video, and it talks a little bit about why we are not a democracy and why it's on purpose that we're not a democracy.
Many Americans would be surprised to learn that the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution, nor does it appear in any of the constitutions of the 50 states. The founders did everything they could to keep us from having a democracy. James Madison, rightly known as the father of the Constitution, wrote in essay number 10 of the Federalist Papers, "Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Alexander Hamilton agreed, and he stated, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in despotism or in the extremes of democracy." And John Adams, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself." The founders had good reason to look upon democracy with contempt, because they knew that the democracies in the early Greek city-states produced some of the wildest excesses of government imaginable.
You think about, he used the word despotism, which I think is really interesting. We think of despots, we think of Pol Pot, we think of, Mao Zedong. But, the whole thing was, if you read Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and I have not read that book, that's just, it's an incredible read, but I've read a lot of excerpts from it. And really it all started, the Russian Revolution and how all that, their thumb on the people started with limiting free speech and telling them what they can and can't say, especially when you go to criticize the government, which we're going to get to later on with Tulsi Gabbard. But I do think that, despotism, we're seeing a little bit of that now.
Yeah, you can't do this and say, well, you can't say that because we don't like it. It's not really true.
Yeah.
You start limiting things. I don't care what somebody else has to say. And it's also sad to see that they want to do away with our Constitution. This little experiment that's lasted 200 and what are we getting up to over 250 years now? We're right at that.
Yeah, something like
that. It's an experiment of 250 years is not an experiment. It's worked pretty good up to now.
It really has.
Until you want to get rid of it and change everything and ignore the laws.
Yeah. And it's, but it's like if somebody just wants to critique, you got to have some thick skin if you're going to be in government. If you're going to be in the public if you're going to be in the public square in any way, shape, or form, you got to have a thick skin. And they can't do it. It's like, and I really think, and we're going to talk about this, like I said again, with COVID, we kind of saw that ball rolling very, very quickly as far as like, you don't speak out against us. And like I said, Tulsi talks a lot about that here coming up in a bit. But
and we've had our bout with people not liking what was said. And it was an expert, and not a expert, but a real expert doctor who has treated patients and knew what was going on. And we just had a quote from him. It wasn't liked. Well, he's the one that's been doing it. Why is that So,
Yeah, because we've been booted off of YouTube certain episodes 2 or 3 times now. And normally it's because of some kind of COVID comment that some expert, and like you said, a real expert was talking about, and they just didn't like it because it didn't fit the narrative that the government has told them that they are supposed to get rid of. So it's still going on, folks. So, I mean, you have to be careful going forward. That's why I think this election is very, very important. So we don't keep going down this terrible road. Speaking of terrible roads, see, that's a transition.
Wow, what a segue. I love a professional. You really impress me every once in a blue moon.
Segues like that. That's right. It's no secret that Biden and Harris are a disaster on foreign policy. See, it's a bad road. It goes to another country. That's why it's a bad road. We have seen that on so many fronts in their foreign policy. But when it comes to dealing with Venezuela specifically, Venezuela's kind of thumbed their nose at us. And you were saying maybe it's a different.
Well, I'm not sure it's a thumb. I'm thinking it's pretty close to the middle finger. Just saying that we're number one, that kind of thing.
And that nail's really long and it's dirty. It's got grease in it. But anyway, when it comes to Venezuela, they've been sending their prisoners. They emptied out their prisons, their mental facilities, and said, "We'll let you free, but you got to head to America." And that's a problem because they're already here, and we got more on the way. But Cuban-American Congresswoman from Florida, Maria Salazaar, was recently interviewed and gave her take on how to deal with them specifically. And here's what she had to say.
Biden-Harris administration, they're solely responsible for what's happening in Venezuela right now. Venezuelans said that if Maduro stays in power, 4 million more Venezuelans are going to be knocking on our southern border. 4 million more people. All right. So Biden signed an accord with Maduro saying, we are going to allow Chevron to sell your oil so then you can have more money in your pocket if you accept the results of the presidential election. So now they're selling oil and they have $1.5 billion in their pockets in the last few months and respect the results of the presidential election.
So what do you think Joe Biden and Kamala Harris should do at this moment?
Same thing that Ronald Reagan did in 1989 when the Sandinistas were giving free and fair elections and they lost. You picked up the phone and you said you signed an accord. We, the United States, were telling you that you have to commit to and fulfill what you committed to. And that's it. And then say to Chevron and to Repsol and to all the oil industries that are there, you got to pause. No more selling of oil, no more money to the repressive apparatus, no more money to Maduro. And I am sure that Maduro will negotiate with Biden and Harris. It's just that phone call has not been made. And the message that we're sending to the rest of the world, Latin America, the Middle East, is that the White House is weak on dictators. Period. That's the message.
They're weak on everything. But
they have no foreign policies on anything. And I liked how, because I heard a gentleman who was from Venezuela and knew firsthand how they were asking the people in the prisons and that you're going to trust somebody that you've got in prison. Okay, we're going to let you out, but you got to go to America if we let you out. Okay, yeah, I'll do that. You're going to trust them to, and apparently a lot of them did come this way.
I mean, because, you got to think about how bad the living conditions are in Venezuela. Why wouldn't they go? They're going to come here. They're going to get Visa debit cards. They're going to get put up in a hotel. They're going to get everything they don't have at home. So why wouldn't you?
Do you know what's going to happen when all that just suddenly stops? There's going to be not pleasant things happening.
I mean, maybe police cars might get set on fire. There might be a couple of things. They're minor. They're just
some peaceful protest. That. Yeah,
mostly people. Yeah, that's right. CNN will report the mostly peaceful protests with things burning in the background.
MSNBC. We're standing here and the whole city's on fire. Mostly peaceful. It's like, what the? No. Are you serious?
Isn't that crazy? I mean, but they didn't even see anything wrong with that. But this Maria Salazaar, she knows what she's talking about. Her parents fled Cuba many, many years ago, and she ended up being a journalist in Miami, I think it was. And she has called out Castro and Maduro for their governing over the years as a reporter. So, I mean, she certainly has skin in this game, and she knows what she's talking about. So,
speaking of Cuba, just read an article yesterday. Their electric grid was down again, not because of any hurricanes, just their electric grid goes down. They don't have anything, just failed because it's probably the last time it was updated was in the 50s, just like all their cars.
Yeah, you can go get a 57 Chevy still down there, but yeah.
Yeah, well, they're all old. That's what they drive. Yeah. They have people that specialize in making molds of parts that you can't buy anymore to keep the vehicles running, because they are back in the day where it was just a carburetor. It's on this. You got a head. All this stuff can be molded and made. It takes time, but they don't have any other means of getting new cars. You have to make a lot of money. They can't even afford to buy one hamburger a month.
Oh boy. Gee. Well, and you got to think their only ally, as far as I know, really ally is Russia. And if you know anything about Russian cars, if you've ever watched any of those shows coming out of Great Britain, I mean, they'll tell you about the Russian cars. It's like, that is not something you want to be driving anyway. But yeah, anyway. This past weekend, well, let's start with this. If you're a Christian, you're kind of on the fence because you don't feel represented by enough on either side. The issues can get kind of murky when it comes to the voting through your faith. But here was Kamala responding. Let me see here. Let me see if I got this clip. Responding to a student in the crowd in Wisconsin, where she was talking about women's reproductive rights, which, AKA is abortion. But here is how she responded to somebody in the crowd.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally.
If you can hear what he says, Christ is King and Jesus is Lord. And her response was, you're at the wrong rally.
And the clapping seals just went nuts.
They did. Isn't it just amazing? Does that not give you the temperature of the room right there?
Wow.
But similar things happened to JD Vance. He was speaking in Wisconsin, I think it was the same day, in Wisconsin. And anyway, this is kind of where the similarities ended, but here's how that went.
Anti-Christian rhetoric and anti-Christian approach to public policy. I don't think that we've, that's right, Jesus is King, and I don't think that we've seen... I don't think that we've seen anything like this in modern American politics.
Again, you see the remarkable thing is how the crowd cheered on both of them, and I think that was just,
it was, and went on for quite a while. And there's already been memes of Kamala, and they've put the devil face on her and whatever else that'll come out while she's making that, and it's just
that's over the top. I can't go along with all that.
Yeah, it's open yourself up, and you just keep being made fun of because you're just really.
Yep. And with Trump and all his flaws, I get it, man. It's like you can take this moral high ground if you want to and say that I can't vote for him because he's cheated on his wife. And we don't know that to be a fact. I mean, whether he has or not, I could list you some things that I've done when I was in my early 20s. You're probably like going, I don't think I want to even have lunch with you. So, I mean, I totally get that. But with all his flaws, he's, at least he does acknowledge God and Jesus. So there's a few clips just got put together for this.
Jesus wants to be Lord of your life. I said there's only one person that can do it all the way. You know who that is? Jesus Christ.
And above all else, we know this. In America, we don't worship government, we worship God.
You can do all you want, but you still need help from the boss. We need help from the boss. Somebody said to me the other day, you're the most famous person in the world by far. I said, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. They said, yes, you are. I said, no. They said, who's more famous? I said, Jesus Christ.
And like I said, with all his flaws, and you got to think, it's like, well, maybe the lightning should have come down as soon as he mentioned Jesus. That's your opinion. I don't know what his faith is, and it's really none of my business. But it reminded me of Paul, who wrote to the Philippian church in chapter 1, verse 18. And I don't normally do this, but I'm gonna read you this. He says, "What then? Only in every way, whether you're in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed, and in this I rejoice. Yes, I will rejoice." So whether Trump does it for his own benefit or he does it because he truly believes that, that's a benefit, and to those of us who do believe, and it doesn't really matter. But at least he's got the guts to say something. So, and we shouldn't look at any candidate as a spiritual leader anyway. Goodness gracious, that's why you have your pastor, or you have somebody in your small group. So let's just leave it there. So anyway, precisely because our flaws are seemingly endless, and
Alan, there's a thing called being saved, and you have a tendency to walk a different path than what you had previously been on. So they don't understand that, because that doesn't affect anyone that's there.
Well, because they've not experienced that, apparently, is what it seems like. So when one candidate agrees that Jesus is king and the other one doesn't, or the other one just says you're at the wrong rally. Maybe that kind of tells you everything you need to know. So when we come back, I'm over on break again. Yes. I keep doing that. What is that? I do think we're paid to talk on this show, but we do.
And sometimes it's me who overdoes it. So this time I'm going to blame you.
Yeah, it's me. Okay. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to hear from Tulsi Gabbard talking about how government has their feelings hurt when you criticize them. So it's really, really good. So hang in there. We will be right back.
It's all about common sense and fun. We'll be right back.
I, Kamala Harris, and your Democrat candidate for president, because Joe Biden finally exposed his senility of the debate. Thanks, Joe. I was selected because I am the ultimate diversity hire. I'm both a woman and a person of color. So if you criticize anything I say, you're both sexist and racist. I may not know the first thing about running the country, but remember, that's a good thing if you're a deep state puppet. I had 4 years under the tutelage of the ultimate deep state puppet, a wonderful mentor, Joe Biden. Joe taught me rule number 1, carefully hide your total incompetence. I take insignificant things and I discuss them as if they're significant. And I believe that exploring the significance of the insignificant is in itself significant. Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time, and there is such great significance to the passage of time. Another trick is trying to sound black. I pretend to celebrate Kwanzaa, and in my speeches, I always do my best Barack Obama impression. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. And okay, look, maybe my work addressing the root causes of the border crisis were catastrophic, but my knowledge of international politics is truly shocking.
The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. It is an alliance that is strong and enduring.
And just remember, when voting this November, it is important to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And by what has been, I mean Joe Biden. You think the country went to over the past 4 years? You ain't seen nothing yet.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 3, a little over halftime. We are, I think with COVID, it exposed a lot of things, which I don't think that was it was intended, but it's about how our government feels about us. We need to be told how to conduct ourselves, our own health care, the manipulation of baseless edicts like standing 6 feet apart, walking down the aisle of the grocery store in a certain direction, and
we didn't follow it in our little.
No, I see.
They put him in because it was a corporate store, and they put him down. Nobody was.
I did it just to get frowns out of
the stupid arrows.
I did it just to get frowns out of people. I thought it was because there were some people who were just so ate up.
The bigger frowns came from some of this older lady. I didn't wear a mask enough that I wore a mask. We're in the store getting stuff, and she's giving us the evil eye. Like, why aren't you wearing your mask? You know you could kill me. Okay.
Because I'd like to kill you.
I'm a grandpa too, and a great grandpa. So
I'm just not afraid. I'm not the square box in my living room. I'm not listening to what it tells me. So anyway, I think our friend Charlie talks about that. The big box in the living room, I think is what he calls it, something like that. But yeah, whatever that tells you, I mean, that's what you got to do.
That's right. That's how about changing to a different station on that big box, and you might find out some information. Or if you only had a device that could look things up and find some facts. What would that be?
How could that happen? Does that really work?
There's an apparatus that does that. Honest, I'm not kidding.
I think I've heard about something like that. But COVID, like I said, it kind of exposed a lot of that stuff, and how a paper mask can keep you safe from a virus, for goodness sake. I mean, it's like, but it went so much deeper than that. And most disturbing to me was the if you questioned anything, that I saw that with the Dark Horse podcast, they got thrown off because somebody had mentioned something about the jab, and Joe Rogan, he's had things deleted. And I know I've talked about this before, but we need to remind ourselves of these things. That this whole disinformation campaign is just ugly, and we just need to.
Well, there were doctors that were having great success with drugs that are generic drugs, with ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and stuff, and lo and behold, it worked way better than the juice you were getting.
Yep, exactly.
And they had their medical licenses removed. It's like, what? You go to that link to stop so that your propaganda gets out there and you can make more money. Well, when you're talking billions, that's when things start getting ugly.
Well, this disinformation campaign has turned into just one big, and I was talking about Solzhenitsyn before, it's just one big campaign to censor the population and what people are saying out loud.
When you censor that, you no longer have freedom.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Absolutely. Tulsi Gabbard was speaking in front of Congress, and I think this might have been a few weeks back, but on how widespread this problem actually was, and how we now know the truth, and we need to protect ourselves in the future. Here she goes.
More dangerous than any baseless smear, our own government institutions, which exist to serve the people, they are being weaponized against us. The Department of Homeland Security declared a heightened domestic terrorism threat due to three factors. The first of which is, quote, the proliferation of false or misleading narratives which sow discord or undermine public trust in U.S. government institutions, end of quote. They are the ones who get to decide what those false or misleading narratives are. Former CIA Director John Brennan said in 2021 that, quote, members of the Biden team are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas. An unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, and even libertarians, end of quote. Attorney General Garland charged his newly created domestic terrorism unit with targeting those who hold, quote, anti-authority views. That included parents who dared to protest at Board of Education meetings, concerned and standing up for the right for themselves to have a say in their children's education. A draft copy of the Department of Homeland Security Quadrennial Homeland Security Review outlined their intent to target, quote unquote, inaccurate information on a whole host of topics, to include the origins of COVID, vaccines, the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan, and U.S. support to Ukraine. Their misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation team exists to, quote, counter all types of disinformation. Once again, they get to determine what this disinformation is. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg revealed on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast recently that Facebook limited the exposure of the New York Post Hunter Biden laptop story just weeks ahead of the 2020 election only after talking with the FBI. Twitter took similar action, but they recently apologized for doing so, recognizing that their decision was wrong. The cozy relationship between the White House officials, the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and big tech is now well documented and results in private companies not restricted by the First Amendment doing the dirty censorship work of those in government who are not legally allowed to do so themselves. The threat big tech monopolies pose to our democracy is real and serious. I've had personal experience with this. After the first Democratic primary presidential debate in 2019, I was the most searched candidate of the night. Unfortunately, and suddenly, my Google Ads account was mysteriously suspended without any notice or explanation. There were no responses to our multiple attempts to resolve whatever problem could have caused this. But after some time passed, magically, my account was reinstated, again, with no explanation or apology. But their actions limited my ability to connect with voters who were actively seeking more information about my candidacy and why I was offering to serve them as President and Commander-in-Chief. This has not only happened to me, it's happened to other candidates running for various offices. Joe Kent, running for Congress in Washington State, is one I know personally of. This happens all the time, with these big tech monopolies interfering in our democracy by manipulating search results based on whatever it is that they want the American people to know about a particular candidate or issue that should be concerning to any one of us and all of us. Now, recently, we've learned that with the release of the Twitter files detailed by Matt Taibbi and others, high-level former FBI and CIA and other government officials were behind Hamilton 68 and their list of 644 social media accounts supposedly linked to, quote, Russian influence activities online. Now, Hamilton 68's work was widely cited as fact by institutions like Harvard and Stanford, by mainstream news organizations across the board, by members of the House of Representatives and Senate from both political parties, including the head of the Intelligence Committee. The problem is, it was false. Twitter themselves determined that the vast majority of accounts that Hamilton 68 targeted on this list of 644 were, quote, neither strongly Russian nor strongly bots, end of quote. They were mostly anti-establishment American voices from across the political spectrum. I was one of them.
So God help you if you disagree with what the government's trying to feed you. I had not heard about that Hamilton 68. Did you hear about that before?
No, I'm not. I wasn't familiar with that one.
I thought that was just me.
But the government can't do it legally. So what they did was had somebody from the government call directly to, they have records of this, calling directly to Twitter was like, oh yeah, sure, we'll do that for you. No big deal. Twitter was, they were as just fell in line with everybody else. Yeah. What do you want us to do? And then you have Zuckerberg at now Meta. Wasn't just Facebook, but that includes Instagram. The WhatsApp is also part of Meta.
That's right.
So you have all of these where no, can't do that. No, we're not going to allow it. It's like, really? And so when Twitter got bought, and then that's the one thing that has turned Elon Musk into a conservative, if you will, values, or moving to the right, because he's supporting Trump, is he believes firmly in freedom of speech. He said, without that, we're doomed. He's not an idiot. He's a very smart man. And when he turned that over and went, yeah, we don't need to have all these people. What did he get rid of? 75% of the staff.
It was almost 80%.
Yeah. If you're not going to work and be here and work when you're here, we don't need you. And when they started whining about stuff, next, they were just all pink slipped. And you know what? They still work just fine because you don't have all these people having to censor people.
Right.
You don't have all those that are having to take this stuff out. And the left is just, they hate Twitter now, or X as it is.
Yeah.
So
they hate it because we're not being restricted in what we can say.
Right. You can say what is legal and legit.
And their go-to is that if you say anything against the government about, apparently I didn't know that they were restricting people about talking about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. That was news to me also. That's why I thought this clip was fascinating. But so if you have a problem with giving money to Ukraine or whatever, it's like they can restrict your account because of that too. So many people have bought into all this stuff that if you have any problem with, sending money to Ukraine or whatever. I was on a radio show last year, I think it was. We were talking about, it was right after the whole thing happened in East Palestine, Ohio, where, the train derailment, and it caused all kinds of environmental issues for the people living there. And we still don't know what kind of impact that's going to have long term. But I said, they didn't really give them people any money as far as I'm understanding at all. They didn't give them anything. But when I was on this radio show over in Great Britain, this lady goes, "I can't believe you don't like the people of Ukraine. What have they ever done to you?" I'm like going, I don't have anything against those people. All I know is that when we can send billions, and at that point it was probably about $100 billion, we're over 200 now. But at that point we can send over $100 billion to this country that nobody can pick out on a map here in America pretty much. But we can't help the people of East Palestine, Ohio, that they've been run out of their homes because they didn't know about the environmental impact. So I'm like, yeah, I've got a problem with sending money willy-nilly to any country. It's nothing against Ukraine. I don't want them to be sent to Yugoslavia or Bosnia or whatever they are now. But it's like, I think it's just wrong for us to put a priority on other people and their problems over Americans and their problems. And we're seeing it again with Helene too.
Yep. And we both agree 100% on that. Yeah. I'm same thing as you can't get rid of our speech, and we have problems. That's how we get things fixed. Somebody notices there's an issue. Let's talk about it. What's going on? And our news media is not news. No. It's not any better than Pravda was.
Nope. Right.
So it's just propaganda. Because we've seen and we played the deal where there was 36 stations all at once. Mm-hmm. They were in unison saying the exact same thing the same way. The script was not any different for 36 stations. Yeah. And they were saying it like it was just to our local viewers here. No, it's not.
And that's where I come back to is I'm grateful for COVID because it actually exposed it. But prior to that, I was kind of fat and happy. I knew that there was some propaganda and everything, but I didn't realize how widespread it was and how it got to the local TV affiliates and how they've been impacted until we got that copy and pasted message about the vaccines and about all these other kind of things. And I'm like going, wow, everybody is in on this, and we're the recipients of this propaganda. So anyway, we're up against another break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about tariffs and a little bit some of the clips from the Al Smith dinner over the weekend, which has some great stuff in it. So
and our palate cleanser, yeah.
Oh yeah, we got a good palate cleanser this week. So hang in there. We will be right back.
The Stay Off My Lawn podcast is recorded before a live studio audience.
Incomparable design makes it beautiful. State-of-the-art technology makes it brilliant. The Lexus NX. Experience the crossover in its most visionary form. Experience amazing at your Lexus dealer.
All right, welcome back to Stay Off My Lawn, segment 4. We're almost out of here. And, Richard can go have breakfast.
For something to eat for me.
Something breakfast. I haven't eaten anything. I have had coffee, and I'd make it nice and strong, so I had to chew it a little bit. But
I only had 1 cup, though. I'm waning, and the synapses aren't sparking anymore.
Just, sit in the corner and take your 8 count, and you're going to be okay.
I'll just drool over here by myself. Just ignore me.
You'll be okay. There's been lots of talk lately about tariffs because Trump brought it up during the debate with Harris, or Harris brought it up. I forgot who brought it up, but yeah, I think people misunderstand what tariffs are and how they work and how they're used actually to protect American manufacturing. But, like I said, there's just a lot of things that we have probably not, I don't think we've talked much about it on this show at all.
No.
But there's a guy named Howard Lutnick. He's a billionaire, and he's actually very involved in all this stuff. He was on CNBC the other day talking about Trump's plan for tariffs, and this is how that went.
When you talk to the former president about tariffs, do you see it as a bargaining chip, or do you think you're going to see tariffs across the board of 20%?
I think we should put tariffs on stuff we make and not put tariffs on stuff we don't make. It's pretty simple. And of course, it's a bargaining chip. We can't sell a Ford or GM in Europe. You go to Europe, you can't sell a Ford or GM. Why? There's 100% tariffs. How about in Japan? 100% tariffs. So do you think if we said, we're going to tariff you the way you tariff us, do you think they're going to allow Mercedes and all these Japanese companies and Porsches and BMWs to all of a sudden have 100% tariffs in America? Of course not. They're going to come and negotiate, and their tariffs are going to come down. And finally, Ford and General Motors are going to be able to sell in these places.
How's that sound?
Of course they're going to come down. Of course. This is just negotiating.
It absolutely makes sense. If you do it strategically, if it's across the board, it creates a real problem. And the question is whether you believe the president is going to do it strategically or across the board. He keeps saying it across the board.
Well, when you're running for office, you make broad statements so people understand you. Right. Okay? Tariffs are an amazing tool by the president to use. They're an amazing tool, but he understands don't tariff stuff we don't make, right? If we don't make it and you want to buy it, I don't want to put the price up there. It's pointless, but use tariffs to build in America. If we want to make it in America, tariff it, or if we're competing with it, tariff it. But you got to remember, we need to protect the American worker. Finally, someone's going to protect the American worker, and Donald Trump is here to protect the American worker.
I think that's where, he kind of explains it very nicely for in almost the fifth grade level to where all of us could probably understand that. It's just it's to protect what we do here in America and not just put somebody else's, and especially China. China's one of those things, and Trump focused on that.
It's with our economy being in the dumpers, people can't even afford to buy cheap Chinese stuff anymore, and their economy it's taken a nosedive. So because they've just been allowed to, if you will, dump cheap merchandise over here, sometimes that's all you can afford. Or there are some things that's the only place it makes it is China, because it's too expensive to make in the U.S. because you can't make it and compete with
slave
Chinese
labor
stuff that comes in slave labor. The Uyghurs are not paid a lot of anything at all.
Really. They feed them once every 3 days, and I think that's about it.
Well, you got to keep them upright, sort of.
But I think and the people don't understand. It's like you think about places like Temu and Wish. Remember how Wish was really big at one point? And it's cheap Chinese crap, which prior to Trump, I think Wish kind of went away because of Trump. And I don't know how Temu is getting away with it. I don't understand all that. But I know Wish kind of went away because he started imposing the same kind of tariffs on China that they were imposing on us. And that kind of fair play, they can't deal with that. So
what do you mean you're going to put, we're tired of you and when Trump was in before, they stopped a lot of their dumping and a lot of manufacturing came back to the U.S. And what happened? Our economy went great guns.
Yep.
It's not, you cannot tax yourself into prosperity.
It never works.
I don't know why they don't seem to understand this. And they go, and they need to pay their fair. You cannot take every single cent that a billionaire has from every billionaire in the U.S. and it will run the government for less than 2 months.
Yep. It won't make a dent in the debt. That's for sure.
It's not going to do. And that's who pays the majority of taxes as it is.
This is over 90%. The top 1% pays 90% of the taxes.
Correct. But that's not what the propaganda machine keeps pushing out.
Yeah, well, it's the whole identity politics. If you're not one of the rich people, then you're or if you're one of the rich people, you're the enemy. If you're not one, then it's like all of us, we're all together on this. We need to make them pay what they pay.
But how come if you're one of the rich people on the left side saying that it's, they need to pay? Wait a minute. You just had a billionaire that was on stage with you and you just said the same thing. You going to tax all these people that are donating to you? I don't think so.
And that's what Trump called out Hillary during the
Hillary
2016.
on, yeah. Hey, I go by the same laws your people do that donate to you.
And she's
I take advantage of the same laws and loopholes and openings. It's what the law allows. I don't do anything more than what the law allows. Same as your donors.
She's not going to change it because her donors take advantage of the same things. Yeah.
All right. And that kind of stopped the conversation on that particular thing right quick too.
Well, we need to move on with that. It's like, yeah, that was pretty good. But yeah, I think it was one of those comedians called that out immediately. It was like one of the greatest things ever that he called her out and it just squashed it, squelch button right there. But anyway, that's how tariffs work, and it's if there, I didn't know that the Europeans were imposing 100% tariffs on us. I did not realize that.
That was news to me as well. I did not know. That's why over in Europe, they're not called, is it still Ford? But the name of the vehicles that, while it may be looking the same as what we've got over here, they have a different name for the car.
Right. I think they do. They have to have some way to get around everything. But even Honda has a plant there in the UK. I heard that this weekend. I was talking to my friend, and he says, that's how they get past all that tariff stuff, is that they make their Hondas over there.
Yeah. I think there's a Nissan plant too in Kentucky or something.
There could be.
Yeah, there's hardly anything up in Michigan anymore.
I know. Honda has a plant in Ohio, and I think Toyota has a plant in northern Alabama, because I think our Corolla was made in Huntsville. So, but there's ways to get around it. And I think that, the bottom line is you got to protect your own workers in your own country. Europe has understood this, obviously, for a long time. Japan has understood this for a long time. We need to get on board with this and protect our own people. And like you said, that's why our economy's in the dumpster. So,
yep.
Anyway, Trump spoke at the Al Smith dinner. Of course, Auntie Kamala was, she was missing for some reason.
She chose not to go. I don't think she takes good-natured ribbing well at all.
It doesn't
Hence
seem
the 95% turnover rate in her office as a VP for her staff.
When you lack the ability to laugh at yourself, I think it does. It kind of Richard and I, the way we pick on each other. I mean, there would be no friendship left at all.
Yeah, and when we make mistakes and call the other one out for it, we leave it in. We don't care. It's like whatever. Moving on.
it kind of gives it color. That's the way I look at it.
Is that why we're calling it good? I didn't know.
We'll call it something. I mean, that was right on the fly too. I'll take credit for that. Somebody put together 5 of the best quotes from the Al Smith dinner. It went on actually for about 45 minutes, but somebody had put together these 5 best of Trump from this weekend, and here it is.
I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walz. Well, I'd better wrap up because Mayor Adams told me earlier that I needed to make this one very quick, especially the city has reserved this room for a large group of illegal aliens coming in from Texas. There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris? Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me. A major issue in this race is childcare, and Kamala has put forward a concept of a plan. A lot of people don't like it. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep them away. That's a nasty one. Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't he look glum? It looks glum. But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
So you're saying there's a chance. Oh, my gosh. Good stuff.
That was my favorite one. And he actually got Chuck Schumer to smile a little.
Well, he patted him on the back.
Because he was sitting right beside him.
He was. And it was Michael Bloomberg was there, and he was all looking glum too. It was a bunch of if you ever saw the video, it's really great. But we do need a palate cleanser after all that. Goodness gracious.
Oh, Lord, yes.
This one is a Paul Harvey, huh?
It's been a day where we've got 2 more weeks left. That's it.
I know. Then we'll have nothing to talk about. We might take a week off after that. I don't know. Then again, we might have to report on all the peaceful protests and things that got burned down and how many people were killed. So we'll have to watch for that. Anyway, we have a Paul Harvey rest of the story about a lady that became known as Granny Hatchet. If you're not familiar with that, you will be in just about 3 minutes.
Now, the rest of the story. Before she was finished reading the terse telegram, Amy's eyes were flooded with tears. It was news of what had happened to her estranged husband, Charles. There was a fancy name for the illness that had taken his life, but Amy knew the plain language of it. Charlie Cloyd drank himself to death. At once, in Amy's mind, echoed his last words. Charlie had said, "If you leave me, I'll be a dead man in 6 months." And that was 6 months ago, almost precisely. And then burning through the ice of those prophetic words came her memory of a happy autumn, 3.5 years past, of the day Amy and Charlie met. Amy's father, the school board president in Belton, Missouri, had recently hired handsome young Charlie Cloyd. The new teacher had not only been a captain in the Army, but also a full-fledged medical doctor. His brilliant brain had long since absorbed several languages in which he remained conversant. Amy had never met anyone quite like him before. Charlie Cloyd, who was new in town, became a boarder in the household of Amy's parents, George and Mary Moore. It was through this opportunity to observe him on a daily basis that Amy's father learned the shocking truth. His new teacher, while charming and intelligent, was an alcoholic. Dr. Cloyd was skilled at concealing it, and yet it was a fact nonetheless, a fact learned too late to save George Moore's daughter, who by then had fallen helplessly in love with him. The Moores fought back, forbidding Amy to be in the same room, any room, with Dr. Cloyd, unchaperoned. And soon Amy and Charlie had devised an elaborate and surreptitious method of communication. They made plans to marry. Amy's parents now realized it was futile to resist, and so with 4 days before Amy's 21st birthday, she became at once Mrs. Charles Cloyd and the most miserable woman in the world. In fact, Charlie showed up for the ceremony drunk. Despite Amy's anguish and his own promises to reform, he pretty much stayed drunk for the rest of his life. Amy tried to rescue her husband, often bundling herself in a shawl, setting out in the darkness to retrieve him from some lair, but she was never able to. Along the way, Charlie Cloyd managed to father a child that he was never to see. By the time little Charlene was born, Amy had returned home to her parents in Belton. You have revisited the day she got the telegram saying that Charlie was dead, but the whole world remembers what came of her grief. For once upon a time there was a daring temperance crusader who urged social reform with a prayer and a hatchet, who in the company of a few hymn-singing supporters swept like an avenging angel from town to town, preaching to drunkards and destroying the places where they drank. And as the aggressive temperance movement she founded gained momentum, those caught in the wake of its fury wondered what on earth could have made this woman so upset. Well, now you know, because you remember hatchet-wielding Carrie Amelia Moore Cloyd by her second married name, Carrie Nation. Only now you know the rest of the story.
Granny Hatchet. She never got over it. She did get remarried, though. I think that's why her last name is Nation. So,
yeah. Well, you know, I didn't know what her reasoning was other than you just shouldn't drink. Well, at that time, from my memory serves me right, the number of beer bars and stuff in the United States was you couldn't walk a block without seeing 3 of them.
Yeah.
In some of the cities, they were rampant. So
it's as much of a problem as smoking pot is today. If you can,
yeah.
And if you've ever been to big cities, I heard New York City's the same way. But when we were in Vegas a couple of years ago, you can't walk down the street without smelling that skunk weed just everywhere. It just drives you crazy. So I understand, and especially with her and her husband and the father of her little baby girl. Goodness gracious, I get it. Anyway, we hope you were somewhat informed and had fun like we did. Don't forget you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon Smart Speaker, which, every once in a while it's kind of fun to listen to. It really makes us sound really good. And of course, where else can we?
We need all the help we can get.
That's right. Where else can we be found, Richard? I know there's more places.
On the Oracle Talk Radio Network.com at 5 p.m. on Thursdays. So the Eastern time zone, that's the Eastern time, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Oracle Talk Radio Network. Just scroll down. There'll be a play button and ta-da. And they've recently come out with an app. We'll give you more information on that when we get more information as to how it's all working. So we'll be going over that. Or you can just go to our good old website at stayoffmylawn.us for all our past and present episodes.
And we'll see you next week, folks.
Thanks so much for listening. We appreciate y'all. Toodles. Well, we had fun and hope you did too. The opinions heard here today are not those of anyone other than Mike and Richard. If it made you laugh or go, or even, then we've done our job. Sort of. Mostly anyway. And if we made you think about things in a common sense manner, we welcome you to the club. And if it didn't, then just stay off my lawn. See you next time.